Thunderball is now 60 years old, and it looks and sounds as perfect today as it did during the peak of Bond mania. The fourth Bond film followed hot on the heels of Goldfinger and saw Sean Connery completely at ease in the role. The history of the production, though, was more complicated, with Kevin McClory sharing story credit with Ian Fleming, leading him to step up as a producer. He would repeat the trick 18 years later with Never Say Never Again, but with mixed results. Thunderball was the most epic Bond film we'd seen, with no expense spared, from Ken Adams' spectacular sets and inventive vehicles to staging a mammoth end battle from the air to the sea. John Barry was at the peak of his powers, creating the sound of underwater, the Bahamas, and 2 Bond songs. There were multiple villains, with Spectre depicted better than ever, Blofeld dictating things to the Western world with his dastardly plans. His number 2 Largo, and perhaps the greatest villainess Fiona Volpe, were just 2 chosen to carry those plans out. With what many people think are the most beautiful array of Bond girls to date, as well as the stunning locations, this was James Bond at his most aspirational. We gathered to celebrate what was at the time the biggest film of them all at the box office, and discussed why we love the film so much. And it was great to have so many of you contribute with your thoughts.
I daren't ask who the eldest is here, but certainly no one here has seen it at the cinema when it first came out. But I know a few of us, of course, on the James Bond Club Ireland screening, did manage to see it on the big screen fairly recently for its 60th anniversary. So let's just hear a little bit about that first, because that was a wonderful event put on by Paul and Kevin and others. Paul and Kevin are here with us.
Hello.
Yeah.
Goodness, we had the easy part, Tom. We just put on this film. You guys made the trip all the way over from the UK, so thank you.
Well, yeah. Carl, of course, was there as well, yeah.
My first time in Ireland, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, won't be
brilliant.
Thunderball was a great one to start the year off with, because it is one of those films, and I know John and Matt have seen it at the cinema as well. It's built for the cinema, I think. You know, the Technicolor and the Nassau and everything. It's just fantastic. So I don't know what sort of stood out for you guys when you saw it on the big screen.
As a kid, I remember seeing this on the TV, and I remember thinking, because by that point it was becoming a little bit dated. I mean, it had been more than 20 years old by the time I saw it. And so the water scenes on the TV, as is rehashed a lot by Bond fans these days, were a little bit slow. And I was like, okay, this is not my favorite Bond film. But then as I matured and I started to get into the intrigue of the whole atomic bomb threat, you know, and the ludicrous set, like, it's just fantastic the way they have at the 00 briefing, the enormous map which they run down from the ceiling, and they go, the circumference of the Vulcan can go throws it back up again. It was like, that was well worth the wait, you know.
This circle represents the full flying range of the Vulcan. Extensive search has failed to locate any evidence of either a crash or landing, and worldwide reports have proved negative on all airfields large enough to handle the Vulcan. That's all we have, sir.
Thank you, Sir John.
These sort of bombastic, enormous spectacles were really, really cool. And there's a little bit of sneaky Bond. There's a whole lot of stuff that is really, really exciting that I love. And when you see it on the big screen, I mean, it's just a different kettle of ball games altogether, to mix a metaphor. And it really pops, I think, is great. And I'm actually glad that we had that as the fourth film, as opposed to maybe film number 1, which it might have been had there not been the case. And we Irish, not exactly our finest hour, we sent an Irishman out there to scupper the plans for that first film. But we get into
Kevin
that.
McClory, if you're wondering about.
Yes. Spoiler alert, yeah.
Yeah, legend, Bond legend. But yeah, no, it was great, Kevin, to see you there as well at the 60th anniversary showing. And I mean, it was a brilliant thing for the club to do, and everyone was made to feel very welcome. Do you think it is a Bond film that you can, the whole family could watch, perhaps?
Yes, there's no question there, Tom. For me, it is my favorite Bond film.
Oh.
I'm just going to come out with it. That's it. There's no more to talk about. We might as well just finish up now. It's my favorite, and
Your bias
um,
going, Kev.
there's no bias in that. I'm just right, and I mean, you're right when you see it on the big. I mean, like everyone, I saw it on TV first time round. I was much younger, and I had a bit of a family story. I had a granddad and my grandmother. They were all Connerys. So my granddad maintained that we were related to Sean Connery, and it was that film, and she informed me all this info. And I was a young lad, I was there going, "Well, that's okay, that's cool, or okay." And how are we related? And he's your fifth cousin, fourth times removed, and we stayed in Ireland, they went to Scotland. It's as simple as that. Don't ask any more questions. But when I kind of rediscovered it in the 90s, probably around GoldenEye time actually, and the one thing I loved about it, I think, was just the fact that it takes you away from wherever you are. I mean, when you look at it and you see France and the UK and Europe, it's cold and it's grey and it's you just feel that kind of winter weather, and all of a sudden you're transported into this warm, colorful, luxurious, exotic lifestyle of adventure, and it's it's Fleming when you describe it. It looks amazing on screen. And as Paul was saying, the elements of the map and shrublands and all of these parts. I mean, it's little mini stories almost kind of weaving together. But I mean, it's a great story in itself with atomic bombs and the world's at peril and only one person can save it. And I think it's Connery's at his best. I think Bond is at its most bombastic probably at that time. And who wouldn't want to sit down and go watch it? I might just hang up now and go watch it, just even thinking about it.
I think it is in many ways. I never thought about this before. You know how people say Tomorrow Never Dies is the last sort of basic Bond film where it's not too complicated. You can throw it on. It's just so enjoyable. And its leading man is in the form of its life. And you could say Thunderball's quite similar, isn't it? I mean, the plot is not as complicated as others. We follow it as it's going along, as John will say later. But yeah, and Sean Connery is just looking better than ever. He's in the form of his life. And it is one, I think, I know some people will say it gets a bit boring, the underwater scenes, but certainly on the big screen, I think it's one that is got a good pace. And it's just got absolutely everything in terms of ticking boxes of what not necessarily massive Bond fans, but peripheral Bond fans would want to see in a Bond film. So much so that it's been spoofed, hasn't it? Everything, the nuclear bombs, from Austin Powers, the underwater titles, which were spoofed in Spy Hard, very well with Weird Al Yankovic, and just so many tropes which have built that Bond fabric, which has made it become a classic. And I know people say You Only Live Twice was almost a very similar film, and you go on to, but why change an absolutely winning formula? And it was, of course, the biggest Bond at the box office at the time, and probably for inflation as well. Now, Carl, what's your history with it? Because obviously you saw it in Ireland.
Yeah, so obviously, I think for me, obviously, I was born in '85, so I didn't really see Bond until GoldenEye, really, in '95. But it's funnily enough, going to my grandma's, and even my uncle Dennis, who I live with, because he likes watching older films, and obviously I watched it on the TV for the first time. I fell in love with the older films to the newer films, and I think Thunderball is, it's just one of those amazing films. I just love it from start to finish, and like Kev said, when they're going to the destinations, you feel like you're there. For me, it's the adventure. It's the adventure and all this, what all the things that he does is just, yeah. It's just amazing, and you just think captured in it, and I still am to this day. I'd say probably sorry guys, Daniel Craig films are my least. I'm up to Dalton, and then it stops. But I'm still captured. I'm still captured by the destinations and the adventure for me. So yeah, Thunderball is probably one of my. I'm going to say third.
That's really
favourite.
Yeah.
I can say it's a Majesty's Secret Service is number one, obviously, and Live and Let Die, and then But yeah, I love Thunderball. Absolutely love it, and I think it's we're celebrating 60 years of it. I think it's a film that I've mentioned in my socials that we're not really talking about as much. No. I think it's as much as A View to a Kill and GoldenEye and everything are absolute brilliant films. We're not talking enough about Thunderball. Like if you think back to last year when we're, Goldfinger and Man with the Golden Gun, and everybody were talking about Goldfinger's 60th birthday and everything, and then, like it's Thunderball's 60th, and we're not talking about it enough, I don't think. So, yeah, that's my.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you there. I think
Yeah.
that says a lot, doesn't it? Like the Burlington Arcade was transformed, wasn't it, for the
Yeah.
60th? And there was loads of other events going on throughout the country and abroad as well.
I'm hoping they'll flood the Burlington Arcade this year for Thunderball.
Yeah.
With
Did you
sharks.
go, Kevin?
Yeah. No, I did. I went to the Burlington last year. I did a few times, and it was great to see it.
Yeah.
But I was there going, come on now, let's do something for Thunderball next year. Let's go for it.
I think as
So come on, Burlington Arcade.
I think as well, once you get to 60 years, it should be celebrated like Goldfinger. Do you know what I mean? Obviously Spectre's 10 years old this year. You kind of won't celebrate it that much. When you get to a landmark 60 years, you have to celebrate it. You know what I mean? No matter which of the 25 it is. So.
And it's got quite a few of the cast still alive that we've met, of course. Luciana and Martine. We'll go on to the Bond girls later. But Carl, I think one day, don't worry, I think you will go to Nassau. That you'd absolutely that'd be so
singing Moonraker.
Win the lottery and buying Palmyra and doing it all.
And
everyone out there for a massive party. But can I just make one tiny observation? I don't want to hog this, but it's just, I think it's a testament to Thunderball that it's one of those films that has certain like magic dust on it, because if you think about the complaints that people raise against like the likes of Die Another Day, they're like, oh, the CGI and the invisible car and the ice wave. It's like you look past all of that kind of stuff in Thunderball. Like the ridiculous effects at the end, right, are just cuckoo. And the guy coming up at the end, which we only noticed when we saw it on the big screen, at the end, the guy coming up with the champagne, in the middle of a fight, your champagne, they're thrashing the hell out of each other. All of that madness, right? All of the fact that Largo gets out of, comes up from diving and is still in his wetsuit, takes the top half off and puts on a double-breasted jacket over it, like absolutely ludicrous stuff. And we're just like, totally into it. You just forget that, I think there's just something that's so well crafted about that film. He's so well served in terms of the antagonist and the actors who play against him, Bond in it. It's just a magic ride. It has, Raymond Benson used to say about the Fleming novels that it has a Fleming sweep, and I think this film is a cinematic version of that, and that's why it just takes me along every time. I'll shut up now.
And no, you've got it like perfectly right for me. It's that's why I like the older films more than the modern ones, because it's the magic of it for me. It just encaptures you, and you don't, like you say, you don't care what's going on, behind the scenes and stuff like that. It just, you're just captured.
Well, Fleming was decent, but with Fleming and McClory, that's when you really get to the peak Bond, doesn't it? That's before we get to Purvis and Wade, of course. Right, John, I know certainly, I don't know, when we first started the podcast, it was perhaps one of the ones where none of us particularly were like, this is my absolute favourite. No. I think maybe I had it probably highest on any rankings that weren't official or anything. Mm-hmm. But you've obviously seen it at the cinema now, and we've met Luciana, haven't we, as well, which has been incredible.
I mean, growing up, it was my brother David's favourite Connery film, and still is, actually. He loves it. And I wasn't as keen. And in true like brother rivalry, we have to go very kind of binary, black and white on that. So it means, well, if you love it, I've got to hate it, that kind of thing. So there's always been this myth that I hate it, and it's just not true. And Tom obviously will play on this.
Yeah. I'll do the Dave role.
Yeah. When I watched it at the cinema in the 60th run, I realised the magic of the film. That's the best way I can describe it. I've always liked the film. I've also, there's loads of good stuff. I think I described the underwater scenes as like underwater ballet when I watched it at the cinema, and it was just so kinetic. For all the dodgy projection and stuff that you might find in this film, you have some incredibly groundbreaking stuff as well. I watched it again the other night, and that's what stood out to me again, just how beautiful this film is. It's a beautiful looking film. It's probably Bond at his most aspirational. You've got this kind of juxtaposition where there's an urgency of the film in terms of it's got to find the nuclear weapons within 72 hours or whatever. And yet, ironically, all he's doing is beach lounging all the way through the film. But it works.
My key. It's 304, please.
Thank you. 304. I'm sorry, no mail.
Thank you.
It's just a beautiful film with beautiful looking people throughout the film, a beautiful score, and, well, as I say, the word to describe this film, I'd say, would be beautiful.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Probably, you could argue one of the classiest Bond films as well, isn't it? It's just oozes charm.
Yeah.
Right, Henry, I called up you definitely for this celebration because watching your recent Bond rankings, you had it really high, and I was elated because I don't know, I expect younger people to not really like this one as much because it's 60 years old. It's not even the most loved, is it, out of the Connerys from the people who were there at the time. So I was really elated. What position did he have it in the end?
Good question. I think
you can't remember.
To be honest as well, but I will say this. I mean, a lot of people will disagree with my comments here. It's fine, but just again, it's an own personal ranking list. But I ranked Thunderball just above Goldfinger. I do think it's a slightly better film than Goldfinger. Nothing against Goldfinger. That's like, bee's knees. I mean, everything you guys have said about it has just been spot on as far as I'm concerned. I mean, like so many others, I watched it first on TV. I think I remember the time it was on like ITV in the UK, which is our Channel 3. It was on late at night. I only saw the bit where Bond was late at night going into Palmyra and obviously got trapped in the swimming pool. Then I was like, I determined I had to get this film, I had to watch it.
No. I got a better idea.
Little side thing though is that my parents said, "Oh, I think this is on Her Majesty's Secret Service." They didn't know which one. So, what's the film did I go by? On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and this is all I remember. But on to your point, I mean, there's so many reasons I could talk about why I love this film. I mean, one of the things that stand out to me, which no one said yet, is you know how good this film is when its remake, Never Say Never Again. Just look how that turned out.
Absolutely.
Even though I do have soft spots to Never Say Never Again, I'm sure we'll get into that maybe a bit later on.
Oh, God.
Probably not. But I grew up watching the Bond films a lot with my grandfather. And he was obviously, Connery was his Bond. I watched a lot of 60s Bond growing up. And I always just did like Thunderball. I love water. One of my jobs I do in my life is swim teacher. I love swimming. So anything underwater, it's like Avatar 2 is just like crazy for me. Like, underwater, I'm dead, done. But I've always just liked Thunderball. I think I love the story as a kid. I've loved rewatching it over the years and discovering more about it. Certainly Connery's performance. I'm sure we'll talk about later the bit where he's talking to Domino about, her brother being dead. Oh. You don't realize how much performance is there.
Domino, I have to tell you something.
Oh, I'm sorry, James. I didn't mean to embarrass you, speaking of love. I know.
I must hurt you again.
You're going away. So sorry, my dear, but it's all over.
No, it's about your brother.
What about him? Francois. He's dead. What happened?
It's a long story, and it involves your friend, Largo.
There's so much, I think, to digest in it. And I always like to leave a little funny story about this. I'm sure like many others, we all played a bit of James Bond maybe when we were a kid. one of the things I did a lot as a kid was, the opening title sequence, the fight in the house, imitate and copy that a lot. Loved it so much. I just always loved Thunderball.
Yeah. One of your friends get whacked with a poker then?
Yeah. Dressed as a widow.
But that's where I've been about it so much. I think it is one of the. It's not underrated because I think there is a lot of people who like it, but I think a lot of people just sort of see it as like, right, there was Goldfinger, then there was Thunderball.
Yeah.
Where for me, it really was Goldfinger was a massive, and then they topped it again with Thunderball.
I mean, again, no one will have said this before, but it's a bit like with Michael Jackson, Thriller, and you have Bad after it. Bad is one of the greatest albums ever, but and it is celebrated, but it's not Thriller, is it? So I'm not saying that Thriller is better than Bad. That's another debate. Dangerous is better than both of them, but that's not math, right? Yeah, growing up, we did have it on video. Possibly, I always say I think the Connerys we watched most were probably Goldfinger and You Only Live Twice, probably.
Yeah, I would say so, and then I would say
Diamonds,
maybe Diamonds Are Forever, and then this I would probably say yeah, but that still meant that we watched it a lot, and I always thought we really liked it. I've always had a soft spot for it, but I think I've definitely grown to appreciate it more, and maybe had more had even more of a soft spot for it as the years have gone by, because I don't know whether it's underrated or underappreciated, or whether it's just like the usual test of if you went up to the man on the street or woman on the street, don't know why it has to be a man, would they, if you said Thunderball, what do you know about it? I'm not sure they would know. They would be able to bring anything to mind. However, Thunderball contains lots of things that were spoofed in Austin Powers and things that have been synonymous with Bond. And I know that Goldfinger almost set the bar in some ways, but yeah, Thunderball really built on that and made probably a more like epic film. And before we got to Lewis Gilbert with You Only Live Twice, and then eventually The Spy Who Loved Me and Moonraker, I don't quite bunch this in with those, but the first with one of those big end battles, one of these plots where it's potentially catastrophic to the world and everything. So yeah, I've always had a huge appreciation for it, and I still absolutely love it. Me and Betty watched it again recently. It's so good. There's so much to like about it. There's so much to appreciate, and yeah, so much to talk about.
What did Betty think?
Yeah, she really likes it. She's seen it twice now, so she really likes it. Oh. Yeah, she loves it.
I really do think, actually, again, from reading the novel now, many times in life, and actually looking at the film, I think this is one of those situations, one of those few moments where I think they not only did a really good adaptation of the book, but I also think in places they actually slightly improved it. Few of them have done, I don't say that about many, but I think there is argument to say that they actually improved the story for Thunderball a bit. In comparison to, I think, comes Spectre, I think because it had a bit of a build-up, because the movies had a bit more of a process. I also think the film gave much more than, say, the book, a sense of urgency, as we've discussed previously. I think some of the characters have been a bit more fleshed out. And I think just Bond's journey in this one, I think, if you want to call it a bit of a journey and how he goes about it, just was a bit more, I think just a bit more interesting, just a bit more fun. And then again, like the ending, I just feel like it just took perfectly what was there, like any adaptation does, and goes, right, how do you make it better to work on a movie screen than a novel? And I think this film just sort of did it a bit. Not all Bond films did that. I'd probably say maybe two did. But
what's the other one?
It's just one pin.
What's the other one, Henry?
I think Dr. No.
John's not. No, we're not going to debate that now.
All I'm saying is, I don't think a giant screen would have worked on real life in the movie screen.
What Bond film could follow Goldfinger? Well, it had to be something which really expanded the world and goes wide scale. And I'd argue that Thunderball is the first one to do that, really. If you think the fourth Bond films, Thunderball, Moonraker, Die Another Day, Spectre, they all top what's gone before. The third film's always really successful, but the fourth film goes even bigger. and Thunderball really delivered that. Firstly, it really expanded the world of Bond from the point of view of the villains. Spectre. This is the first time we see Spectre in full operation, in the board meeting in Paris. That is such a great setup because it really shows them as an official organisation. They mean business. This is serious, and it's really rapid. Also introduces the character of Largo. He's really, a key component of Spectre. He's really loyal to Spectre, and the tension there is added because Bond's obviously been up against Spectre twice now. He's defeated them. Now he's up against Largo, so there's a massive tension there. You see that added in the 00 meeting in the emergency room where all the 00s are circled around and they played a tape from Spectre. It really adds to the stakes there, so that's really great. It's great to see in this Bond film Bond doing so much spy work as well. It's great when you see him sneaking around Largo's villa at night with the music playing in the background, or underneath the Disco Volante, and it follows that Bond trope of the villain suspecting it's Bond but not being 100% sure, and that I really love. That works really well. There's a great juxtapositions of the locations as well. I mean, the Bahamas, that has become quite an iconic Bond location. A lot of other Bond films have filmed there, like Spy Love Me, Casino Royale film scenes there. And you really get the juxtaposition of the locations in the same way that Dr. No did. In Dr. No, it was kind of swinging London, the high-class London with casinos, and then we moved to Jamaica, which is completely on the other side of the world, completely different, the exotic beaches, the islands, everything. It's the same here, given that the first bit of the film, a lot of it is set in England, and then we're transported to Jamaica, and that effect, that juxtaposition, really makes you feel like you are transported to this other location, which is so exotic and just otherworldly. You really feel like you're there with them, It is, I believe, still, I think, the highest grossing Bond film, adjusted for inflation, and you can really see that in the production value. It's a testament to the Bond team that they did this. I mean, Ken Adam is such a hero in this film, designing those tow sleds and pretty much Disco Volante pretty much from scratch, or he's building around it and making something which is so, just ambitious and really delivers, creates what is such an iconic scene, the underwater battle scene, and really serves the plot. It makes up such a great deal of the plot as well. It's just so well done. I mean, really, this is one of Ken Adam's greatest achievements, and it's only his fourth Bond film at this point, but he's just really on a roll here. And obviously Barry as well, the music. I mean, the soundtrack has got to be in. It's got to be in the top 5 of Bond soundtracks. The drama, the action, even the underwater music. Barry created that, and that's something that has become a kind of a action set piece. Follows that Bond tradition of having the action really match what's going on, and the underwater battle scene. It really, everything just comes together in that moment, and it all climaxes there, and it really delivers. So yeah, happy 60th Thunderball.
We'll move on to the pre-title sequence. We've touched on it a bit because obviously Henry was reenacting it as a child, but it's another. Math just said people might not say anything if you said to them Thunderball, but if you show them this, if you show them that fight, if you show them the jetpack, they definitely remember that. That's one of the most famous gadgets, really, isn't it, in the whole series? I would argue.
I love the jetpack scene.
No well-dressed man should be without one.
Yes, very practical.
And I love the fight in the room as well. All it screams is, as funny as it sounds, all it screams is Austin Powers.
Yeah. That's spoof as well, isn't it? Yeah, of course it is.
It's the shock factor of it, though. You're watching that for the first time, and he goes, I'm come to pay my respects, and then a big dig.
Madame, I've come to offer my sincere condolences. My dear Colonel Bouvard, I don't think you should have opened that car door by your...
And if you're an audience party, well, hang on, what's going on? And it just explodes. The whole fight goes everywhere. You've places destroyed, there's furniture going. It's sped up a little bit.
Banging on the door.
Bang on the door. Yeah. I tell you what, the worst locksmiths are probably over there for the way that door held up with all the people banging. It does set a tone for quick, fast-paced action when it's needed. And, we haven't even got to the pre-titles almost kind of slow it down. We'll talk about that in a minute. But this just really gets the audience going, whoa, we're in it already. There's no warm-up to this. We're going straight at it. And I do like the little deflection at the beginning, the coffin, it has her initials on it.
Yeah.
The coffin, it has your initials, JB.
At this moment, rather him than me.
It's the first time we're seeing that trick of, is he dead, is he not, what's going on? And the audience is, just for a split second, does wonder. So that's brilliant.
Also get a real sense for the venom in Bond when he is clearly angered and out for revenge, and he just delivers it in that one line. Jacques Bouvard killed 2 of my colleagues. He's
his Connery is unbelievable. I mean, if you haven't
excellent. It is the best.
Colonel Bouvard passed away in his sleep, so they tell me. You sound disappointed. You did not kill him yourself, huh?
I am. Jacques Bouvard murdered 2 of my colleagues.
It's fast-paced, isn't it? Really, the editing. Do people like the editing in it? Because the end fight, I know people keep criticising the back projection, but the actual frenetic nature of that and this is something that hasn't been done before. Very different, really, from the fights in Goldfinger, and certainly the grand fight in the train is very gritty and realistic. But this is sped up, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, again, this is one of those things which you kind of like. I think you're willing to look past now. I don't know why. It's just because I think we've grown to have such affection for Bob Simmons and Sean Connery as well. We know they're pushing it to the limits of what they could do at the time, and the editing as well. And you're just like, yeah, fuck it, this is great fun. Yeah, we can see the cracks in it now, but we're used to, vastly enhanced technology. But at the time, it was really thrilling. And for some reason, that translates to today in the same way that, we can travel a lot to nice places now, maybe not as much as people might have been in the early to mid 60s. I think it was starting to happen then. But it's like, just like you say, the cold of winter to the sunshine of the Bahamas, you feel that today. Like it just feels, I don't know. I don't know why that happens with these particular early films, just the way they look. Really it's a visceral experience watching them. It's really great.
It's all real, isn't it? And it's all on location. Even this chateau it's not on a set, is it? It's inside the chateau.
I think you feel the budget in this film.
Yeah.
The budget. If you compare the Goldfinger PTS to this one, so the Goldfinger one is perfect. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm talking about the scale. So you've got a lot going on in that, but it's all quite confined. Whereas you're in a chateau, you're moving from one place to the next, you're getting your big fight, but that's not your climax. You're then getting onto a rooftop with a jetpack, and then you're bringing in a car with gadgets to finish it. And this is only in 4 minutes.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And it's set in that stall is that this is going to be, to quote what the film was when they're the biggest James Bond film. They are going to make this big, and that's what they're doing.
And it's probably ironic that we probably have some of the sort of turmoil that preceded the film to thank for that in a way, because we wouldn't have had the budget to make that spectacle if it had been the first one out of the gate, right? And we might not have had the enormous effort to make it big and to ensure that there was no rival Bond film being made, because as far as I know, McClory was out in Italy scouting for talent to make his independent Thunderball. He was going to make it independently of Eon. And he was looking to, I think, isn't it in some kind of Hero? He said they were going to offer it to Richard Burton, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, I heard that. All right, yeah.
Very different timeline of events. And it was Eon who said, like, we're not going to let that happen. That'll mess with our series. So they had to go all out to really claim this film and make it a big thing. So who knows how much influence that had, but it could have been a very different experience of Thunderball had it not been for those events.
Just going on to Sean and all that, yes, he's proven that he can scrap with the best of them, hasn't he? Particularly the famous fight from Russia with Love. This has got to be up there in the best fights in the series for me, and he's really physical in this because Bob Simmons is a big bloke, isn't he? And that they're really, like you said, Paul, that you can feel this fight. And although it's done quite quickly, quite a lot happens, and it's using the environments of anything they can get their hands on, the curtain and stuff, furniture. It's just so angry, I think someone else said. So I think Sean is just, in a suit as well, of course.
It's one of those where him and his opponent are probably similarly physically matched, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So it's like they're both giving it, so obviously the last fight we saw James Bond in was with Oddjob, which was in such a completely different environment against a completely different opponent and filmed in a completely different way, quite rightly. And it sounds completely different because there's so much urgency with this. There's so much, obviously the editing, the music, the moves that they're performing on each other. I don't know, they're just, it is. Yeah, I think it's brilliant. I think it's probably underrated, actually. I know I keep saying it, but I think it's a really good fight. And also, this is something I keep banging on about and getting boring, but I do love a villain that's only in the pre-title sequence, so they sort of just belong in that section of the film. I love it when that happens, and this one's a great one.
Yeah, definitely. I think exactly the same. I think the more you watch it, the more you appreciate it, and I think it's Sean Connery giving it his all right from the off. Like John said, first 4 minutes, it's just like, wow, if this is the first 4 minutes, what's the rest of the film going to be like? Do you know what I mean? It's just, brilliant.
Sorry, very slight tangent, but how cool is it that Jacques Beauvoir has a Spectre number that he's number 6?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that is cool.
That like when Blofeld puts that line in later, I was like, that is just class. This little title sequence character there is actually a Spectre number. To me, that's one of them Easter eggs that I want in my Bond films.
Well, I mean, we could go on to that Spectre scene. I mean, again, how memorable is that? And I know Austin Powers spoofs it again, but this is, like you say, John, it's like an anti-MI6, isn't it? It's like an evil version.
Yeah.
Like the Antichrist, the Omen and all. It's like, you've got your 00 agents, and then you're right, the different numbers, they've got their equivalents. But it's just, I mean, Ken Adams' set is perfect. The setup of the camera, we keep saying it, John, don't we? The best Blofelds for us are probably the ones in this and From Russia with Love, where they're pretty scary and you don't really see an awful lot of them, but they have that quiet authority throughout.
Colonel Jacques Bouvard was killed by an unknown assassin. His services will be greatly missed.
Well, you've got that omnipotence, haven't you? Is it omnipotence or omniscience? Sorry, I'm getting my religious phraseology mixed up. Omnipresence, that's the one you are.
Yeah.
You've got that idea that he is not seen, but sees everything. And that everybody is in complete fear of him. And actually, to me as well, even in You Only Live Twice, the best bits of Donald Pleasant's Blofeld is when you don't see him and when he's just talking. It's that kind of thing like in horror films, when you don't see some of the actual things, it's even more scarier. I'd actually say that's the same for Blofeld. When you don't see Blofeld revealed, you can build up a picture in your head of how evil this guy is.
We said this on the review. I do think this is probably the best portrayal of Spectre in all the films, I would say. The set is scary, it's uncomfortable, and Blofeld being set back and raised the level and you can't see him, it's so good, and his voice sounds brilliant, and it's, the music and the set and everything.
Spectre is a dedicated fraternity whose strength lies in the absolute integrity of its members. The culprit is known to me. I've decided on the appropriate action.
One of the missed opportunities with the Daniel Craig era was not just Spectre, which I'm not too hard on the big meeting scene with Blofeld, but if they'd just been able to join it together, because like the introduction of Quantum, or the organization in Casino Royale, is like omnipresent in a different kind of way by Mr. White just being there and in various scenes and something. I think that's quite a clever way of doing it. And then I don't think it's done too badly in Quantum of Solace either. So if they'd have just been able to join that up a bit better or stick with it or something, then that could have been really good. But if I was looking at how to introduce Spectre in a new Bond film going forward, I mean, I probably wouldn't do it in the first film. They're probably more likely to do a little sting or something. I don't know. That I can see that happening. But I think this is a great way of showing Spectre and introducing a Blofeld. I know we've had him in From Russia with Love, which was done really well. But similarly, having him as like the overall, I don't know, threat in the background, but then having a villain for the film as well. And I think, I'm sure we'll discuss Largo later, but I think it works really well in this film. And, going forward, that's what I'd be looking towards for future Bond films.
How cool is it that Spectre is a charity in this movie? It's high, and pod on, monsieur, and the deference that's given to them, that there is this sinister organization that's putting displaced people into new countries and homes and giving them a new life. And I mean, it's not in the hollowed out volcano. It's hiding in plain sight. And it's a little touch, I think, that we kind of go, okay, what's this? And you go behind the door, and then you see further, you go further in, and you get this fantastic scene. But I love these little moments where it's just so sneaky that why would we check that? They're good guys over there.
Yeah.
Delicious bit of cynicism. I love that interview at the start where you can hear them talking about, we would be delighted to help you with your
Yeah.
excellent place in here. Meanwhile, behind the wall, I was like exploding in chairs. It's fabulous. That's a great point.
I think you guys have literally said it right there. It's the menace and the fear that in that meeting that is shown there. It's just done so wonderfully well. I think, in obviously Dr. No, obviously you got the mentioned, member of Spectre, you get From Russia with Love, you get a bit more about it, but this is really like the proper introduction of who actually Spectre really is and the gravitas and their extent. I mean, I always thought one thing I loved about Spectre was how intelligent the organization was and how meticulous. And you see it very much in this, when you got the itinerary updates, just even when Emil Largo number 2 comes in, just how he says, we'll get to your thing in a minute, just going through everything, and just it's so wonderfully done. And how that's, I think, for me, what I loved about this scene was the intelligence of it, how everyone there, was not treated like, you're a bumbling fool, now you must pay the price. Blofeld's not going, where's my sharks with laser beams? But no, it's just like, you know what? I can see plainly, easily, you're the person embezzling. Bang.
Yeah,
that's the rules.
Rather than the crazy shark stuff, you realize that when he's not being sinister hosting meetings, he's poring over the ledgers of the accounts of Spectre going, these pennies have not been properly accounted for. Investigate immediately. But it works beautifully. It's so sinister. I love that too.
What a cool reaction from Largo. Literally cool. He just off, doesn't he? He's probably not. I don't know. People would never have him as their top 10 maybe villains. He doesn't seem to get in the conversation. Yet there's quite a lot going on there. You've got this vibe that he is number 2. So you think From Russia with Love, he's a step up from those guys. Yeah. They were like incredible baddies. So this guy's even more sinister and trusted by Blofeld. He looks the part in terms of, he's got a very distinctive face and the patch. He's classy, the way he's dressed, always, as you said, Paul, the dinner jacket and the the double-breasted jacket over the wetsuit look. And he's at the casino table. He's more of the world. He's more debonair than the previous villains we've seen. And you can afford to do that when you've got Blofeld as the main mastermind. You can get these people in the real world. But I just think the storyline, of course, with Domino is quite disturbing, but it just adds more to his character. And I think I've never heard him discussed as, he's not a very good villain, really. It's more, like Matt said, with a lot of the film, he's underappreciated, maybe.
He's very polite in how he speaks. He don't give anything away, Yeah. So, at the scene where at the casino table where Bond offers to get Domino a drink, and he goes, well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Emilio, you promised to buy me a drink.
Soon, my dear. I want to get my money back first.
May I be allowed to buy the lady a drink?
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Then I must pass the shoe.
He don't give anything away as if to say, you like, from Bond's point of view, is, oh, I know what you're up to, mate. Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. Yeah, he don't give it away. I mean, even when he's doing his villainous stuff, he's even nicer. He's got a niceness about it. I'm just going to throw you in with the sharks. You know, that kind of. Me personally, I like him as a villain.
Yeah,
he ain't the best, but I like him as I really rate him as a villain. You know, he's one of those nearly gentleman villain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The growing up math, it's that when we used to film our own Bond films, we like this vibe of Bond somehow gets to wine and dine with his arch nemesis, and we're just fascinated by that dynamic. And this goes right into that, doesn't it? They're so polite with each other, Bond and Largo.
Yeah. You must let me show you around.
Oh, I'd love that.
I thought you might.
And again, you know, there's sort of elements of Bond in Largo, you know, like we've said, you know, being in the casino, being a man of the world and likes the finer things in life. And, you know, I don't think Largo is meant to be like pure, unadulterated evil, if you know what I mean. I think he's just someone who, obviously, you know, craves like power and money and everything, and to live his life in such a way and doesn't care who gets hurt, you know, by that. It's such a good idea having the villain, you know, this sort of not the main person behind Spectre, but this sort of, well, number two. Yeah, again, I think he's underappreciated. Chris used the phrase when we were doing the 100-day review or whatever, however long it was. He gets stuck in. I was comparing it to the Lewis Gilbert films before, but a difference here is that the villain is like actually getting into the water and he's part of the battle like that. He's not, you know, up in another room with a damsel in distress or anything. He's, you know, he's down there trying to lead his men to show them what they should be doing. And you know, I do think that's interesting. And you know, we've discussed it, the double-breasted jacket over the but that's because he's been in the water himself, you know, trying to do all this stuff. So I think he's an interesting character. And again, sometimes we want so much from our villains, but if you do that every single time, then it becomes a little bit boring. And I think he's completely different to Goldfinger, which is interesting, and that's what you've got to do. You know, not only does he look and act completely different to Goldfinger, but again, like, just his sort of whole purpose and everything is different. So I think he's a great villain.
I think, yeah, I totally agree with that. He's almost an evil James Bond, isn't he?
Yeah.
You know, he's got it. He knows what he's got in terms of like money and everything like that. He's got it planned in his head what he's gonna do. He don't, you know, he's not like scrambling or anything like that. He's just an evil James Bond. But yeah,
they share a lot of the same things, don't they?
Yeah,
they play chemin de fer.
8.
8 à la ponce.
9.
9 à la ponce.
You seem to be unbeatable, Mr. Bond.
They share the same woman.
I'm not what you'd call a passionate man.
They both do clay pigeon shooting.
Oh! Seems terribly difficult. No, it isn't, is it?
No.
You know,
they've got the same skills. It's weird.
There is a lot of that. It's that darker side of Bond, isn't it? In a lot.
Yeah.
And
both need men underwater in that scene at the end. They both are tough. Like, for example, you notice that Largo in the meeting at the start, you've mentioned already his cool look when the guy gets fried. So some of those guys look like they're sort of accountants on the take, you know, they look a little slimy. But you can sense immediately that that Largo is a hard man. From the moment he throws the side eye at the guy who pulls him up for parking funny, and he's like, "Oh, sorry, Mr. Largo." And, you know this guy is a force to be reckoned with physically as well as anything else.
He's like a player manager, you know. He does the team talk, but then he's on the pitch with the lads in the battle.
Yeah, analogy I was looking for.
I think I've said this before, but like I do think he's the Gary Neville of
Gary Neville.
how Gary Neville, you cut him open and he bleeds Man United.
Yeah.
I genuinely think there is no one who, if you cut Largo open, he bleeds Spectre. How he kisses the ring. He is Spectre. He lives for Spectre.
Yeah.
You know, everything is Spectre, Spectre, Spectre. And I'm all for it. Yeah.
Yeah, like James Bond is for MI6 and, you know, for Queen and Country, he's Spectre through and through.
Yeah, I think if Largo were to be a footballer and score a goal, whenever he scored, his celebration would be like kissing the ring or something.
Yeah. If someone got past him, he'd say, "You let him get the better of you."
Very good.
God's sake, Lord Lally, will you stop?
Hi guys, Brian here, really 007. Thanks for letting me do this, guys. My thoughts on Thunderball. I still love the film. From the first time I saw it as a child up until now, it still blows my mind. The opening pre-title scene where the fight breaks out, the jetpacks, who doesn't love jetpacks? The DB5 and the water cannons, it's just simply amazing. To be done in 1965, it's just amazing, just amazing. The title song with the amazing iconic Welsh singer Tom Jones, just going for it, amazing. Just like the iconic title song Goldfinger with Shirley Bassey, another iconic Welsh singer, both going for it. I find the songs so similar, from when they actually say the title name and they really bellow it out, to the smooth flow of the lyrics from both people. There are so many similarities, again, which is why I love it. When it goes into Bond's mission and he walks straight across that room to take his seat and everybody's looking at him, you see the full scope of what is going on. And I just remember thinking, wow, this is how you make movies. To when he turns to the actual painting and it lifts up and there's a world map, I'm just thinking, what on earth am I watching here? And I was just glued. Some of the things that make Bond films so good is the iconic locations. And when Bond goes off to these exotic places with beautiful sands and beautiful oceans, not just myself, but the whole family just gathers around to watch it. And Thunderball is no exception. The water scenes, the underwater scenes, I just find just beautiful, just beautiful. Bear in mind, growing up, when I used to see underwater scenes, it used to be things like Stingray, The Poseidon Adventure, Jaws, all iconic, but this is Bond. There's something different about it. My favourite scene in the entire movie, spoilers, hopefully you've all seen it, is the end. The end when the actual plane drops the dinghy into the water and Bond and Domino swim over to it. Okay, what's going to happen now? You see them climb into the dinghy. Okay, what's going to go on now? Sean Connery doesn't say a thing. It just starts unpacking, starts inflating, and you see Domino's reactions of, what on earth is going on here? And I'm thinking, what on earth is he doing? What on earth is he doing? And then he sits back and he puts his arm around her. Fair enough, what's going to happen now? And this plane just comes into shot, and my jaw still hits the floor to this very day. When you actually see it clip onto the actual balloon and just whisk them away, he's looking down, she's just holding on to him, and the film finishes, just still blows my mind. I last watched this film in 2024, and I was still fist pumping in the air when that was happening, screaming, yes, yes, that is how you do a Bond ending. I'm just smiling because I love this film so very much. Thunderball, happy 60th. Guys, really 007, I hope to see you all soon. I hope to be on the podcast soon. Have a wonderful show and look after yourselves. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
We continue the 60th anniversary celebrations of Thunderball by discussing those wonderful James Bond girls.